Anyone else, water?
Thank you.
You?
Thank you.
All right. So I got a few emails and text messages from people that have been affected by the fire, so they won't be able to make it. So probably we'll have less people today.
Where's the fire?
Newberry,
Huh?
Newberry Park, guys like,
Casted, the five.
Oh, wow, okay. I haven't caught that one yet.
Porter Ranch, and I got a
Santa
text
Maria.
from someone from Topanga that they're like making them like starting to like kind of be on warning on Topanga.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, so let's send good energy and pulse for those fires to be over. How are you, Justin?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
All right, so assuming that you all read the chapters of persistence and mastermind group, right? So when we talk about persistence, we're talking about really something that we have to take really seriously in this business. If anything, this is a business where persistence is going to get you to the next level. You gotta just keep going. You can't get discouraged by not getting one listing, by not closing one escrow, by not getting 4 listings, by not closing 5 escrows, or by a buyer buying with someone else, and you waste your time, all that kind of stuff, that happens all the time. That's just the nature of our business, and you just gotta continue going and keep going and keep going. So a lot of times I tell people that the ability, one of the secrets of being successful in this business is the ability to move on for the shit that happens. Just move on. Don't keep thinking. Don't keep talking about that didn't happen. Don't keep dwelling on that escrow that didn't close, on that client that didn't come through. And again, it's a numbers game. You gotta go to 20 listing appointments to get a few of those listings, So, but what happens is by doing it more and more and more, you're mastering your craft, right? You're doing, because, you have natural talent, that you're born with, that you're good with people, it's innate, it's with you, So that's something that is with you. But that gets you to a certain point. Then you need to develop skill. And you only want to develop that. I don't know if you heard that a lot of people say that you become an expert after you've been doing something for 10,000 hours, is that correct? Right? A lot of people say that if you've been doing something for 10 years, that you also are an expert. Well, those things are true, the more you do, the more you do something, the better you're going to become. It's an example with athletes, with just about anything, right? So when we talk about persistence, I want to make it very specific to this book and this class. Persistence on what? On chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, on all the points that I tell you in there, right? Just keep doing it. You keep reading your statement every morning and every night. You keep doing all the steps that we already covered on the prior chapters. Don't get discouraged. It's very easy to get discouraged because this first sometimes doesn't work, and sometimes it takes a while. It takes time, right? God delays are not God denials. God timings are the best timings. Your timings are not the best timings. So sometimes we wonder why this not happening, why this didn't go this way, because there is something better waiting, and if that happens and you force something to happen, what the universe does is like, oh, you really want that to happen? I was trying to give you this, but if you want that so bad, okay, here you go. And all of a sudden it's not as good as you're supposed to be receiving. So just keep that in mind, that when you're doing this, you need to have in your mind the big picture, the big goal, where you're gonna be. And the more you can be connected with that and just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, it's gonna become natural to you. Again, I'll tell you guys, this is a lifestyle. You need to habituate yourself on doing and living your life this way. And yes, you'll be off track. I get off track all the time. But you'll start to notice more when you get off track. You just gotta get back in your driver's seat and continue to drive and keep going. So, once you make the decision, which was the chapter, last week, that you're gonna do something and you make that real decision, not like, yes, I'm gonna do this, like you really mean it, then persistence is what's gonna get it to go through, right? So, did anyone read anything that will I need to talk or cover before I jump into my? No? Nothing interesting about persistence that you wanna say anything about? Okay, so how about let's talk about how can you train yourself to be persistent, right? I mean, if anything, I think discipline is one of the most important qualities that someone can have. So, persistence is a state of mind, therefore it can be cultivated. That's good news. Like, you don't need to be born persistent. You can become persistent. Like all states of mind, persistence is based upon definite causes. Among them, these are examples. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. I'd like someone to read 8 for me. Anyone wants to participate? Just to make a little more interaction. And yes, Glenna, please. Thank you.
Do you mean, sorry, the 8?
Yeah, there's
Persistence is the state of mind, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, okay.
Yeah, I guess it's my numbers. Does it say the definiteness of purpose?
I'm just reading all of them.
Yeah,
You're reading
it's
one
an
of them.
I'm reading
ABC.
one of them,
Yeah.
okay. Definiteness of purpose. Knowing what you want is the first and perhaps the most important step toward the development of persistence. A strong motive forces you to surmount many difficulties.
Right, so if you're not persistent and you're not you don't feel like you're being persistent enough and you're getting off track, that's because your definiteness of purpose is not really strong. So that's just a indicator that you need to go back to the beginning of the book and really figure out what your big why is. What's that burning desire again? Because if that's not strong and that's not, the right thing, well, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to be persistent because it's not that important to you, right? So when they talk about examples about burning all the bridges, like the conquistadors, they came and they burned the boats. Well, they had no choice, right? They're going to die or they're going to conquer. So it's the same thing. Like your goal, your burning desire, if it's not good enough, you won't be persistent. So when you feel that you're not being persistent, you're not on top of it, and you're falling off track, that means you need to go back and review and reanalyze. Maybe my why wasn't strong enough, but maybe it's not the right thing. So just indicator. Next. All right.
Desire. It is comparatively easy to acquire and maintain persistence in pursuing the object of intense desire.
Same thing. Like that desire has to be so big that going door knocking for 2 hours is going to be a priority, and you won't be discouraged when you knock on the second door and some person slams that door in your face. You won't say, maybe today's not a good day, I'm not connected, maybe tomorrow. No, those are tests. You just got to continue going. So if your desire is big enough, I remember when I was doing that and someone did and I got discouraged a little bit, all I have to do is remember where I wanted to be and what was my goal, to get back on track and be motivated again to go to the next door, and to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one. I'll read the next one. Self-reliance. Believe in one's ability to carry out a plan encourages one to follow the plan through with persistence, which is self-reliance, can be developed through the principle described in the chapter of auto-suggestion. So again, this chapter mostly is based on all the other chapters. It's persistence on everything that we learned already, because we go kind of fast and we say, oh yeah, this is going to be my thing, and yes, auto-suggestion, I'm going to do a couple of exercises and everything, and then you start forgetting and then you're not doing it. I mean, raise your hand who feels like from 1 to 10 has been doing everything that we've told here at 10. An 8. Okay, pretty good. 5. Okay, I don't want to go down more. But that's a perfect example, okay? It's just normal. That's our normal way of being. It just fades away and we just forget and we get unmotivated. And that's why the reading in the morning of every day, of every night, and the visualization is just to keep you on track, reminding you that you have a goal, that you have a purpose, that you have that desire, that you need to keep that flame really strong inside, because if not, none of this is gonna work. Everything starts falling apart. So this chapter is just basically a chapter that's telling you, okay, this is like a test right now. It's like, let's check, through persistence, what's failing. Are you motivated, like maybe just go back and try different things. Who wants to read the next one? Thank you.
Self-reliance, belief in one's ability.
The next one.
I'm sorry. Definiteness of plans, organized plans, even though they may be weak and entirely impractical, encourage persistence.
Okay. Same thing, right? Next one. Done?
Accurate knowledge. Knowing that one's plans are sound based upon experience or observation encourages persistence. Guessing instead of knowing destroys persistence.
Right. You gotta know what you're doing. You gotta know your craft, right? And that applies now if you look from the real estate point of view. You really need to know what you're doing. Guessing is not good in this business. Billy can tell you that. There's a lot of agents that guess and get in trouble. Cooperation, sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tend to develop persistence. So this is going to be tied to the next chapter. One of the best ways of developing persistence is having an accountability partner, team, mentor, or group. This is our group. So when I ask you from 1 to 10, it makes you think, oh shoot, I should be doing a little bit better. So I'm helping you to be more persistent. If you talk to someone, right, like you guys work together, for example, and if you check with each other every day, it's gonna help you be more persistent, because you're not gonna both fall off track all the time. It's gonna be, one's gonna be motivated today, but the other one's not gonna be so much, and one's gonna pull the other person to go. Happens that way or not? There you go. So that's basically very tied to what the next chapter is. Willpower, the habit of concentrating one's thoughts upon the building of plans for the attainment of a definite purpose leads to persistence. Willpower, that's one of the toughest things for humans to do. Just have the ability to stick to what we say we're going to do. From the most simple thing, when waking up a certain time in the morning and doing something, a lot of times we just wait for special occasions to do something, right? It's like, oh yeah, after New Year's I'm going to go to the gym. We all know how busy gyms are from January to February and what happens, right? Like everything is like that. It's funny, and we laugh about it because we are conscious that exactly that's what happens, and we still do it. We still go and do the same thing, right? And last one, habit. And that's what I was telling you. Persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes a part of daily experiences upon which it feeds. Fear, the worst of all enemies, can be effectively cured by forced repetition of acts of courage. Everyone who has seen active service in war knows this. I forgot last week, I'm so sorry to send you that video with Will Smith, but he's gonna cover that, and maybe there's a reason why I forgot, because I think it's gonna make a lot more sense now. And he talks that since he was very young, he was afraid of fear. In an interview, someone asked him, are you fearful about something? And he says, yes, I'm afraid of fear. I hate being fearful about something. And the way that I basically learned how not to be fearful is, he says, just about everything that I was fearful about, I attacked it. So I was fearful about working out, I just went to the gym. If I was fearful about door knocking, you go door knocking. Whatever it is that you have that fear, you attack it and you do it, because by confronting it and doing it, you realize that it's not going to kill you. And it's okay to be afraid sometimes, and then you start realizing the fear is really not real. It's something that you create in your mind about some situation or something, right? So, Griffin, can you remember, please? Can send in that link? Thanks. Okay, so then there's a little thing that says take your own inventory of persistence, right? And there's about 16 steps in there, right? That tells you basically the weaknesses that we all have. I can read them really quick, okay? Failure to recognize and define clearly exactly what one wants. Again, we're talking about the same thing. Procrastination, right? You need to schedule it. You know, if you schedule it and it's real and then you do it, because if you say one day I'm gonna do it, we all know that the one day takes you to a place called nowhere. Lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. Yeah, I mean, if you lack interest in learning about real estate, then that means maybe you know the right business, right? Because if you are in this business, you want to know everything about everything, be the best at what we do. Indecision, that's a big problem. The habit of passing the buck. On all occasions, instead of facing issues squarely, we also have an alibi, right? Well, I didn't do that because this. Or yeah, I was gonna do that, but if all those alibis are no good. So when you start feeling those things, now you're gonna start noticing more. And that's why you need to read this stuff a few times, because then you become more aware when you're getting off track. When you start making excuses, you're like, oh, you gotta go back. The habit of relying upon alibis instead of creating definite plans for the solution of problems, same thing. Self-satisfaction. There is but little remedy for this affliction, and no hope for those who suffer from it. Do you understand what that means? Can you explain? Can someone tell us like what self-satisfaction means on this specific case? Right.
Well, what I took it to mean is that at some point when you're doing what you're doing, you become self-satisfied and you don't continue your goal.
Mm-hmm.
You don't keep putting the effort that it takes to get to where you want to be. No, I got enough today. I put enough on my plate, things have been busy, it's good enough. And you're self-satisfied, so you pull back. And then when you get, again, determined because you're now not satisfied, then you back on track.
Right, but then you lost some time, and
A lot of
you
time.
could be here, and now you're here, and you at least realize it, but you already wasted time, you know, opportunities and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, self-satisfaction and contentment are one of the most rotten things that we humans have. Just be conformed with like little, because we couldn't achieve something, and we go back to our comfort zone instead of saying, look, I didn't do it now, but I'm going to try again to get it on. Indifference, usually reflected in one's readiness to compromise on all occasions rather than meet opposition and fight it. You gotta face it and fight it. The habit of blaming others, oh my God, this is huge. Right? Okay, I don't think I'm saying part of that. Weakness of desire due to neglect of choice of motives that impel action. I mean, look, if there's weakness of desire, again, you go back and reanalyze what you want. If your desire is not burning, then your goals are not in alignment with what you want. Willingness, even eagerness to quit at the first sign of defeat, based upon one or more of the 6 basic fears. Go back, look at the 6 basic fears, and read them again. Lack of organized plans, place in writing where they might be analyzed. That's why it's important to write down, because you forget stuff. I mean, at least I forget all this stuff. So, but if you write down and then you go back to this book and you start looking at your notes from last year or from this year, then you're gonna remember easier. That's why it's important to create a business plan, right? And it doesn't have to be a super elaborated business plan that you learn in college or whatever. If you just Google, right, a basic business plan, this gives you an idea on how to create a little business plan, and it starts simple. It's always good to start simple. Okay, the habit of neglecting to move on ideas or to grasp opportunity when it presents itself. So now that you're going to be more aware of this, what happens is you will be put in situations where you're going to have that gut feeling. That gut feeling is your inner self, is your higher self, is whatever you want to call it. That if you feel that you should act upon something, you need to act, because the only way that this works is you are in alignment, you know what you want, you are persistent, you're knocking on those doors, and then the opportunity comes and it's right there, and you have a small amount of time to take it. And sometimes we don't take it because we're afraid that we're going to fail, or maybe that's not the right thing. Doesn't matter, just take it and then figure out later whether it's gonna work or not. Wishing instead of willing, of course. The habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches. General absence of ambition to be, to do, to own. Well, you wouldn't be in this class if that was the case. Searching for all shortcuts to riches, trying to get without giving a fair equivalent, usually reflected in the habit of gambling, endeavoring to drive sharp bargains, drug dealing, whatever all the bad things that can get you money really fast, but a very short time career. That's why I left Bolivia. Fear of criticism, failure to create plans and put them into action because of what other people will think, do, or say. When you don't have money to pay your rent, or when you don't have money to pay your bills, or when you're in a crunch or everything, do you ever get a phone call from your friends or the people that you're concerned of what they're gonna say when you fail on your plans to offer you money? Do you think that the people, especially the people that are gonna criticize you, are gonna help you out, give you a hand, or go through those problems with you? No. So who gives a shit what they think, right? Because it's very easy for people to judge and to say or whatever. Don't pay attention. The lion doesn't pay attention of what the sheep says, or the wolf, or whatever. There was a saying, right? About that? Have you read that? It doesn't matter. You do your thing. Whatever they say, this is just noise, because all those people are not gonna be there when you really need it. Trust me. Okay, so those are the 16 ones, right? There's a thing that you can read about if you fear criticism, which it makes you realize how ridiculous it is to be concerned about what people will say. And once you get over that, you'll have a much happier life. And then there's an exercise in there, how to develop resistance, right? And then it's kind of like going back to what we already read, so I'm not going to go over it. And it talks about going back to your desire, to your plan, to everything that you have done, I'm hoping, and just continue to go over and over and over again. There is some exercises in the workbook that I love for you guys to do. I mean, it's fun. It's not long. It will take 20 minutes of your time, right? Good so far? Questions on that chapter? Yes.
Can we go over in a little more detail, maybe the accuracy of knowledge?
Which page was that?
That would be page 181, number 5. Accurate knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If I could, can you give me an example of something?
Yeah, hold on, let me get sure. I think
181?
I think I have a different book.
Oh, yeah.
I'll find it.
An 8 steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, accurate knowledge. What I understand from that, you have on one hand, you need to be knowledgeable about your craft, right? Whatever that you do. I mean, you've been doing this for 30 years? 30 years. Okay. So you probably know your shit.
Oh.
I know you do.
Yeah.
By the way, did you teach that class already or not yet?
No, we're gonna do it on Wednesday.
Okay, on Wednesday, Brian is teaching a class on, can you tell him a little bit more?
Well, okay. On Wednesday.
No, I think I'm gonna come, you should come, I'm not gonna be in town, but you guys need to come to this class, it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's gonna be on commissions and getting your value, okay? So it's gonna be mostly talking about talking about 6% commissions, justifying your value, finding your value and what you offer to people, and then basically some ways of talking about getting your value. And so I'll share those with you. And that'll be on Wednesday, 10 o'clock, I guess,
It's like a regular meeting time.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a little quick meeting and then Brian's gonna take over and go over his experience, successful experience of getting more than 6% commission and how he you know, how he explains to clients, so they go for it.
Yeah. It'll be very informative, I guarantee you. I'd be shocked
Yeah,
if
no, I
any
heard
of you,
some-
I'd be shocked if any of you came or heard that and then walked away from it and in time didn't come back and say that was extraordinarily helpful. Okay, I really think it'll
Yeah.
add something to what you're doing, and it'll help you to improve what you're doing with your clients as well. Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Suck this.
And it's good to try. I mean, look, you know, the 5% is becoming standard, and we know there are agents that do it sometimes for less and stuff like that. But if you start at 6, right, and you need to bring your listing agreement with a 6 on it, because you can always cross it, and you know, we talked about this already. So important. So one is knowing, you know, in our business what we do is that accurate knowledge, but also you need to make sure that that is in accuracy with what your goals are. So when you set your goal, don't set a super easy goal that you know is going to happen, so then you're unmotivated and you know it's just not going to get you to use any of this. But if your goal is also not an unrealistic goal, it's going to be so far that you're not going to be motivated to do it. But just find something that is, you know, I don't know, a percentage every year to get a little bigger. And if that goal is in accuracy with where you are in your business, what you know, what you're doing, and if I can maybe break it down even more, if I'm understanding correctly about this on my perception of what this book is, if you have a really good knowledge and you have developed this incredible knowledge on a specific area, right? Make your goals on getting listings around that area, and not blocking other areas, but don't try to buy too big and try to go in other areas where you might not know. Bring someone with you, right? So be accurate on what you know and what you don't know, I think is what it means. Does that make sense?
That part does, yeah.
Right.
And my thing was just a little touch on it, because I get that, and I wanted to see if you could expand, because your personal experiences, I think, are going to be influential on the question, because I can say I have a lot of knowledge of how to dig a ditch, right? I've learned how to dig it. I know how to be effective at digging that hole. I'm trying to dig a hole to get to some water, okay? But I'm heading down a hole, and I keep digging down that hole. I want to keep going down that hole, because I figure there's water down there. Turns out maybe there's not. Because I've seen some examples in here where some guys head down into a hole, but then they come out of it a winner, you know? Then it's like, so I didn't know if in the book or if in some kind of way you've come from a standpoint of knowing when to go to another place to start digging that hole, per se. You know, that kind of philosophy. The accuracy of knowledge I took is maybe also that, like that you have the accuracy, because you know, people drill 4-0, but they do it with some intelligence to say, we think it's here because. But when do you know, like the accuracy of knowledge and then knowing when to take that persistence and energy and divert it maybe into something, kind of like that. So I was looking for
Okay. So
something
we talk
along those
more about
lines.
like when, you know, there's two things, and they can get confusing, right? When they talk about the guy that stopped 3 feet from goal, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes you need to make little shifts, right? We talk about the playing golf example, right? I don't play, but I heard this. If you play golf, right? If you move, you know, the angle just this much in the distance, it will be huge distance, right? So little changes. So when you're digging that hole, right, doesn't mean you need to stop and go and start from scratch somewhere else, but maybe within that hole you need to move in a little bit other directions, and that you only learn with time, right, with experience. But sometimes you need to just do a little bit here, a little bit there, and then go that way. And I think that's the knowledge you're talking about, the knowledge that you learn through experience as opposed to the knowledge that you study.
I think part of it is that one of the examples that I liked earlier in the book, and I actually told my son who's almost 11 this story earlier this week, is the guy that spent all the money and went out mining for gold and stopped 3 feet short of where the gold was, because he didn't have, I mean, just kind of goes to the mastermind of dealing with people that know and have experience and everything else, but it's literally that example that he spent all this money, he did all this stuff, whatever, but he didn't really have the exact knowledge, and so he gave up, and some guy came in, bought his stuff pennies on the dollar, found the one guy who really knew about it, and found that he'd stopped 3 feet short of where like the jackpot was. So I think it's a lot of, you know, the making sure that, you know, that if you don't know, having the right people or surrounding yourself or, you know, getting the answers, things that we talk about all the time.
Yep, and we talk about Henry Ford, that would be another example, right? You he was not a guy that knew everything, but he surrounded himself with people that did specialize on specific things, so he could reach out to each of those, right? So, and that's kind of going back to like areas, right? If you don't know an area that well, just call someone from the company. Like, I have a client of mine, they called me, he wants to sell a house in the desert. I called Rich Nolan. We listed the house, and within 2 days it sold. The client's so happy, sent me a long letter about how great the experience has been with Rich Nolan and the whole thing. Did I sell something there? Maybe. I can list it, you know, that technology allows you to put it up in the MLS and have it there or whatever. But why? Why would we even waste the time doing that, right? So that's also important. Just know what you know what you don't know, and just keep focusing on what you do. Anyone else? Should we go to the next one? The mastermind group. Who's been part of a mastermind group before, in the past? Can you share what kind of mastermind group you were in, Danny?
I would say in many occasions, private and business, basically doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah, what field.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well-
with you, when I moved here to the States, yeah.
That's an example. Doesn't have to be a group, right? Two makes a group. Small group makes a group, okay? So, what about you?
I had started a networking group, which I knew that I didn't know all the areas, and so I wanted to put together a group. Well, actually, I found when I was in various brokerages that there wasn't really much sharing. And I wanted to get more information on pockets and on different areas where I didn't really, have a lot of information or experience. So I put together a group that had, like sort of the more ethical and youthful and, more enjoyable people that kind of specialized in each of the areas. And I got like Beverly Flats person that I thought, and Brentwood and Beverly Park, which was Mauricio. We met every other Thursday at either an upcoming listing or a pocket or something. We would talk about best practices, and actually 50% of that group became the agency. That's actually how the agency started.
Awesome. Amazing. So, I encourage you again, if you're not doing it already, finding that one person, or we can use this. I mean, this is, this tells you to find another group, but we don't have time to have groups and groups and groups and groups. So when you come over here and I ask you questions or actually interact or read and this and that, it's because you gotta participate. I don't know everything. I mean, I certainly am not a professor that we're talking about this book. I didn't write the book or anything. I'm just purely talking about my experience, the way how I interpret it and what's worked for me. Maybe some things that I say doesn't resonate with you, don't take it. If it does, take it. If you have an opinion, tell me, because doesn't mean that I know more than you. I'm actually very interested in learning what your perceptions are, because I learn more, so the next year I can do it and use what you told me for next year and get better, so we can all get better. So this is our mastermind group. Let's use it. Let's share. Let's share our experiences. I get a lot of calls and texts and emails from agents saying, hey, you said this about this last week and I went and this happened to me, right? Or I got this listing or this, or was thinking about this or what, or whatever. You share a beautiful experience that you had last week with your son. So all those little things are important, because we're supporting each other. Even just to share something with someone, it gets that energy out there, it makes you feel better, So let's use this as the mastermind group, please. I think it'll be very helpful. Okay, so let's read this for a second. Power is essential for success. Before I do that, we all know that we together are more powerful than alone. We're very powerful beings, but if we combine, right, our energies, our knowledge, our experiences, and everything, we become a lot more powerful as a group, right? So that's the whole point in this, so learning from each other. So, power is essential for success in the accumulation of money. Plans are inert and useless without sufficient power to translate them into action. This chapter will describe the method by which an individual might attain and apply power. Power might be defined as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. Power, as the term is here used, refers or organized effort sufficient to enable an individual to transmute desire into the monetary equivalent. Organized effort is produced through the coordination of effort of two or more people who work towards a definite end in a spirit of harmony. Power is required for the accumulation of money. Power is necessary for the retention of money after it has been accumulated. Let us ascertain how power might be acquired if power is organized knowledge. Let us examine the sources of knowledge. A. Infinite intelligence. This source of knowledge might be contacted through the procedure described in another chapter, which the aid of creative imagination. So this is the power that you get from your higher self. That's why we meditate, right? To quiet our thoughts. We're thousands of thoughts all the time. And I was like actually looking at a video yesterday of Jim Carrey, that he says the day that he got it is basically one day when he woke up and he observed as an outer person, as his higher self, himself thinking of all these thoughts that were so necessary. And when he realized that we sometimes are thinking and making so many ideas, creating these emotions of ourselves, that it's all in your head. It doesn't really exist. And the moment you can realize that there's a lot of thoughts that you don't need to be thinking, and you start to train yourself, what happens is when you quiet, the whole point of meditating is to quiet your thoughts so you can really listen to your higher self, what's important, what other messages, knowledge, ideas, you know, those, that's basically what that's what's talking about infinite intelligence. And that there's accumulated experience, right, which we were just talking about, like the thing you accumulate experience, the accumulated experience of a man, or the portion of it which has been organized and recorded, like this book, might be found in well-equipped public library, right? You can go and learn stuff that someone else knew and wrote. You can just use this book, and that's why I love this book, because this is basically a condensation of a lot of smart, successful people, and a guy that dedicated his life to go pay attention and put it in one book. I mean, how great is that? Seriously. And you have C, experiment and research in the fields of science, for example, and in practically every other walk of life. Men are gathering, classifying, and organizing new facts daily, right? In our days, what's one of the most important things that you can collect? Starts with a D.
Knowledge, information.
Data, right? That's what everybody pays for. Like, how many websites are there? I just was reading on a magazine, what was it, Time magazine, some magazine, the truth behind the DNA tests that they make you do when you swab and you send to see where you come from or whatever. What they're doing is they're selling your DNA to researchers, right? They're collecting data. So that's the most important thing right now. Okay, gaining power to the mastermind group. You will gain power to the master. You'll be encouraged. The only thing I can remember right now is when we sat with Billy and Mauricio before I came to the agency. We're just talking, you know, trying to figure out how we're going to work together. And Billy said to me, Santiago Arana is going to be fine without the agency, and we're going to be fine without Santiago. But if we get together, you know, we can create something and grow and help each other. And it's exactly how it happened. You know, the day that we decided to come together, you know, it was a good thing. How to multiply your brain power. I think this is a cool one. So how do you multiply your brain power? We talked about this. I just want to say it one more time. I know it sounds repetitive, but it's super important. Again, Henry Ford's example. The only way you can multiply your brain power is to add more brain power. Right? More brain power, more people, more knowledge, more experiences together. So, Happiness is found in doing, not merely in possessing. And that's when sometimes we need to remember that is enjoy the ride, not the final destination, because we don't know when the final destination is. Right? So let's talk about a little bit more about persistence, because the group, the mastermind group, I think is a very simple thing to do. You just gotta do it and participate. But think about a baby, for example, right? How persistent is a baby? Right? You're born persistent, right? At some point you stop being persistent, but you were born like that. None of you, gave up on walking. Just think about that for a second, right? A baby crawls, gets up, starts walking, falls 1,000 times, but he doesn't give up, right? You don't give up. So think about that you had it, and at some point in your life you lost it, right? If you lost it, maybe you have it still. But persistence, something that you were born with, right? It's an innate ability. You have it. You were born persistent to do things. So if you were able to learn how to walk, being a baby and never gave up, you shouldn't give up when you fall 100 times. The day that you fall 100 times and you don't get up, you think that by not getting up, you're gonna get up. No, the only way to get up is to get up. So maybe it's 101, 102, 103, 104, 1,000, 10,000, like maybe Edison, right? The other thing that I observe and I read and I learn all is like, babies don't have fear, right? I mean, think about you're a baby, and then here comes this big human really close to you to grab you. At any point you feel a baby is scared, they don't really know. You develop fear through life, right? Through experiences, you develop that fear. The reason why I'm mentioning these things is if we at that point in time were persistent and we lost it, let's put some thought into what made us lose that persistence. And I can almost guarantee you that it's gonna be that you try something at a very young age, and you didn't get it done, or you didn't achieve, or you fail, and people made fun of you, and then you didn't want to do it again. The same people that they don't give a shit when you're in a bad place, so you shouldn't worry about what they're saying. The same people, and now you feel that they don't care about that, and they keep trying, and they don't care about what people say, and they continue to go, that become, successful. Discipline. That's a huge thing for me, huge. I developed discipline at a very early age in my life through martial arts. And then obviously I went to the army. I was there for a year, and you develop discipline whether you like it or not. And it served me well in my life. I think I consider myself being a very disciplined person in every aspect of my life. And to me, self-discipline equals to self-love. If you don't have the discipline to take care of yourself, to be healthy, to exercise, that means you don't love yourself, right? Because if you're not doing the stuff that is good for you, you don't have the discipline to stick to it, that means you lack a little bit of love for yourself, and maybe you should rethink and really learn how to love yourself first, right? So if you don't love yourself, how do you expect other people to love you? It needs to start from here, right? You need to start loving yourself, feeling good about yourself, and then that energy goes out there, right? It's been proven that it's a magnetic force that when you enter into a room or a situation and you are feeling good about yourself and you're positive and you are this force of nature, it goes 30 feet that people can feel that, right? People feel that energy and they feel attracted to you, they want to talk to you, they're nice to you and stuff like that. Same way when you're in a bad place, you walk in a place and people feel that, except that the negativity and the bad vibes, it only goes 1 feet or 2 feet. It's been proven with electro, whatever they do these days. So that's important. Some notes in here. Okay, so if you do what's easy, right, your life will be hard. But if you do what's hard in the beginning, your life will be easier at the end. That's something that I always think about, right? Every time I'm getting discouraged, every time I'm getting tired, every time I'm like, I'm gonna stop right now. I'm not gonna do that extra call. Think about that. If you make that extra call now, it's an extra call that you don't have to do tomorrow. Then I have nothing else, I think, for today. We can do 12 minutes of Q&A. Anyone wants to put some thought into
We
it?
have a question.
Yes.
So here we were talking about kind of the physical mastermind group, but I also started kind of having my imaginary or mental mastermind group.
Yes, thank you.
So can you maybe
Yes.
elaborate on that as well?
Of course, of course. So here's something, and this is a really super fun exercise. That might be a little out there, I don't give a shit. But this is one thing that I try, and it's really cool actually, and I enjoyed it. And I used to go to the gym at night actually before. So and after I work out, I will go down into the sauna, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, so no one will be there, right? So I will go in the sauna and I'll be in there, and I visualize myself being sitting with people that I read books about, or I know enough, right? That I would love to be sitting on a table and pick their brain, right? So I will imagine being sitting there with Jesus on the left, Bruce Lee on the right, Henry Ford over there, Kobe Bryant, just you name it, right? And you make it fun. And I'll be like, throw an idea or a question, and me, based on what I know of those individuals, I say, what this person would say about that. And if you know about someone, right? Like if you read, like I read a lot and I watch a lot of videos about Kobe Bryant, for example, right? And I know that this is a guy that just doesn't give up, right? This is the only guy, I think, in the entire NBA that decided to get in a fist fight with Shaquille O'Neal, right? That's when Shaquille said, well, this guy lost his mind, right? Like nobody's ever done that. And that's when the dynamic between those two changed, because he was not gonna stop, right? So you learn enough of people that you can actually have that fun mastermind group where you kind of throw ideas, and it's actually a pretty cool exercise. I mean, it sounds a little funny and yeah, right, whatever, but if you have people that you admire in your life, you have mentors or people that you read enough that you know, just play that exercise for a second. Just visualize that you're sitting and what that person will say about what you're doing today, or you're thinking about doing something or whatever. That's a cool thing to do, actually. Thanks for bringing it up. I forgot about it. Okay, enter into meditation mode now. All right, guys. Yes.
I just wanted to add one thing. I think that it's also really important to remember that when you think of something that's really, really hard, and you just keep thinking, oh my God, this is so hard for me, how am I gonna do this? It becomes really, really harder.
Yeah.
But when you just don't think of it and just kind of just do it, don't even, sorry to say, but mind fuck it so much, it just rolls off.
You know what, Trump's gonna get reelected, I think, although you shouldn't be talking about politics, because they pay too much attention. That's all they talk about. It's all about, so the more you talk, the more attention you pay, the more power you bring into it. You know, it's like attracting to it. You know, it's like everything's doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive, it's just too much. So it's the same thing when you have a negative thought or whatever, or something bad happens and you continue to talk about it, and you're speaking, you're hearing yourself saying it, and you just reinforcing that and making it more and more and more and more and more. So how about we do the opposite, you know, just quiet that and start talking about prosperity, about abundance, about how great the other things are, and that starts fading away and you start switching things around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What you said reminded me of something Monique gifted us all with last year, which were these jars. I don't know
Yes.
if you remember. Well, I kept mine, and she gave everyone this empty jar.
That's
I think
great.
it was the end of the
Yep.
course. And she said, whenever you have something bad happen to you or you're struggling, write it down and put it in this jar, and it will dissipate, it'll go away, it'll go out into the universe, but you'll never forget it. And I don't know if I kept it, and I did it, and over the last year, you know, there's some notes in there. And what happens is I go back through them, and I was looking at it last night, as a matter of fact, and I just went, wow, that was nothing compared to this. So you're talking about doing things hard for life to be easier, what we think is hard, and when we get through it, the ease at which it really was, because of what you're now able to accomplish, is so much greater, which is really cool.
Yeah, you need to look forward to, like, once you do something that you thought was hard and you've done it,
It's nothing.
that's one less hard thing that you need to do. Now you know how to do it.
I think you should do this class twice a year. Really, no, because you know what, these are
Gotta work
awesome.
sometime.
This is, I know, but I mean, this is just, it's stuff that we know, we all know, but it's just good to keep reminding ourselves. And like you said, through a couple months, or like going to the gym after New Year's, you kind of just forget about it, but these are
So
really
maybe we don't do the
important.
class twice a year, but maybe what I can do is, like, we're gonna finish this maybe like in January, we can do like a get together to talk about where we are and kind of like, you know, like accountability meeting.
Yeah.
And we can just touch on the important points and see where we are all, raise our hands from 1 to 10, where are we, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we do another one maybe in 3 months, like every 3 months or something like that
Exactly.
until the next meeting. Okay,
Exactly,
looking good.
just kind of like a refresher.
And also, you know, other resources, like every time you've mentioned a book, I've written it down and I'm going through the library, like one after the other, you know, just the things that got brought up.
Yep.
And what's interesting about it is a lot of it ends up building on this. It's a lot of similar things I recently did. I had it forever, the physical book, and I didn't get around to reading it, so I did the audio of Science of Getting Rich. And a lot of it feeds into this. And then,
For sure.
you know, when I was at, you know, Tony Robbins stuff, I met a guy, Tony Robbins, though, you need to listen to Grant Cardone. So I did like one of his books, which is like a very different take on it, but it all ends up being a lot of the same things. It ends up being persistence. It ends up being about, you know, planning. It ends up about just going out there and doing stuff. So a lot of it kind of reinforces it. So I've actually started, like, I've typed up a list and I add to it every time somebody suggests a book or something like that. You know, Relentless, I did because Santiago talked about it. I listened to the Tom Brady book, you know,
Do
because,
you read it already?
yeah.
Relentless is
Right, right.
amazing.
Yeah,
Right?
so,
It's a
but
great
it's,
book.
but it's a lot of the same kind of thing, and I think it's like, you know, in terms of, you know, persistence, it's like a check-in, so we could, like, you know, create like, you know, a suggested reading list for people that wanna do stuff, because I think a lot of it is just kind of keeping in the frame of mind as you go and reading things that, you know, I was talking to Ben Belloc about this, is that from everything, you know, you might not resonate with everything in any particular thing, but if you pull a nugget out of it that applies to you or works for you or something that stays in your mind, then it's kind of, you know, to build upon.
Yep, it's true. You don't need to resonate with everything. Just if you can just work one thing out of each book, one thing out of each talk, out of seminars and everything, that's the likely proof. Okay, so next week I won't be here. I'm out of town. So you need to read the chapters. Oh, this one's the one that everybody gets weird. It's kind of cool. The mystery of the sex transmutation. And then after that, we do the subconscious mind, which is really cool. So we'll do that not next Friday, but the following Friday, okay? So have fun with those two. Read it and try to understand really, especially the chapter, the first one, right? Because it's, I'm gonna ask all of you, not all of you, but I wanna ask a few of you what you think about that. This is really fascinating to see what people think about that chapter. And it's, you know, I didn't really understand it at first for the first few years, but I think finally now, based on experiences and talking to people and a coach and this and that, I think I got a concept of what kind of it is and why they wrote it, and it makes a lot of sense. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye, class.
Thanks
See you.
so much.
Bye, guys. Good, good. Yeah?
Write my emails.
Thanks for the email, I got it.
Oh, yeah.
What,
That's gonna be fun for you.
I mean, not with that, but, yeah. It's just.